Greetings, everybody. This is Professor Hussein here at Polk State College in Lakeland, Florida. Reference to this is interesting. Japanese airline accident at Haneda Airport in Tokyo, Japan. Obviously, that's the news right now. Obviously, it's a classic case of runway incursion. Everything else is redundant when you talk about unauthorized entrance onto the runways, which is most likely the case with this flight. Now, most important thing we need to understand, and if you look at um, the jet charts, you can see that runway 34 right here, and it's interesting that how the communication was conducted and how this aircraft ended up on the runway without the knowledge of the you know control tower. Not I wouldn't be saying knowledge, but still he was on the runway for a couple of minutes before this accident happened, and that's most terrifying because you can see, as you see from this on map as well. Let me go back to the background to the accident. Obviously, the fatal saw Japanese flight 516 crash into a Coast Guard aircraft after touching down on the runway on Tuesday, causing it to erupt in terrifying fireball. All 379 passengers, Japanese airline were safely evacuated in what has been hailed as textbook response from crew members as well as passengers. Five of the six crew members and small Coast Guard aircraft died, according to Japanese sources. So if you really look at the transcripts, reference to the ATC communication, and I'm just going to read verbatim from the transcript. Transcript shows a clear takeoff approval for Coast Guard. Instead, telling it to taxi to holding point, Charlie 5. Taxi to holding point. I mean, obviously in the U.S. we call it the whole short line, but they call it holding point elsewhere. And if you look at the runways, you can see this is 34 center. This is 34 right. And this is Charlie 1. This is Charlie 2. Charlie 1 is way back here, and the displaced threshold right here. Charlie 1, 2, 3, 4, and the location of the aircraft, which was holding short of. That's what the initial contact was. They advised the Coast Guard aircraft to taxi in to Charlie 5 holding point. That meant holding short of the runway right here. So you can see that evidence shows that even after the clearances, he, instead of, for unknown reasons, instead of holding short of runway 34 right here, he taxied into position for takeoff. So there's two different clearances if we might go with that communication. One is holding short of runway 34, which is supposed to be holding short right here before the wig-wag lights, the in-payment lights, and everything else. All those indications that you are approaching an active runway. Plus enhanced marking right here. If I zoom in, it shows you 34 right. So you can, every which way you can see is holding short of 34. And this is a sign here which shows mandatory signs on the panels on the right hand side. This is for the Cat 2 approaches. If it's IFR weather, he's supposed to hold short for this because of the critical areas. So he, instead of holding short, he somehow thought that he was supposed to taxi into position and hold. And that's what he's saying. He's saying taxiing and holding for takeoff. Holding for takeoff is, he probably taxi onto this position and was holding there. I mean, that's a long time, 45 seconds. That's a long time to be holding on the runway. Um, and not listening to the tower. Obviously, they're on the same frequency as the Japanese airline, and Japanese airline was cleared to land on the same runway. So that should have triggered something in his mind that he's on the same runway as Japanese airline, which is on final approach. So before making, let's zoom in again, before making a left turn onto an active runway, we all know pilot's supposed to be looking to the right, making sure there's no traffic on final. So if it's 1 minute, so 1 minute is not too much. He's probably a mile, 2 miles away, 3 miles, let's say, away from the touch zone, and he should have seen the lights, and which he obviously did not. And then obviously, if they did not, and if they missed the sign here, that is, uh, instead of holding short of the runway, they went onto the runway and what we call taxi into position and hold. They should have at least, if they missed the aircraft when they got onto the runway, meaning they looked to the right as always, like you're supposed to, and he didn't see any traffic. He missed that landing traffic lights from that Airbus 350, but he still could have been listening to the radio. And while he was on the runway, the Japanese airline was cleared to land on that same runway. That should have triggered something. So obviously, we can see he, while he was waiting, and this is the touch zone marking for the runways. That means Airbus 350 is aiming for this runway. I mean, for this area where he's going to touch down. So sure enough, from the wreckage, it seems that he did touch down here, and then it's kind of really difficult to see, even if you are 2 miles away from the runway with all those lights and dark pavement and at nighttime darkness. It's very, very difficult to see if there's an aircraft on the runway. So he probably didn't even see the runway, aircraft on the runway till he touched down, till he made a touchdown and know where he could make a go around from their point onwards. He creamed into the aircraft. Obviously, from the wreckage, it seemed that he hit his front wheel landing gear, and you can see the front radar area being damaged. Obviously, collapse of the wheels of tires as well, and then broke them into two, and engulfing both aircraft in flames. Luckily, that all passengers were evacuated, and no deaths. There's minor injuries to passengers, which is understandable, but it could have been really bad if there were delays in evacuation. But they did a great job in evacuation. Unfortunately, 4 crew members died in the Coast Guard aircraft, and further investigation will show. Obviously, there was a runway incursion. This could have been worse. Just like the one we had, KLM and Pan Am 747, one of the major disasters reference to the runway incursions. So with all these technologies, plus there was a notice to NOTAM issued for lights as well as radar as well on the airfield. So, I'm sure they must have listened to the ADIS and NOTAM before taxiing onto the airfield. So it's important for us to really understand that importance of NOTAMs, making sure everything is everything you should know is there. More than likely, investigators are going to go through the transcript again, exactly where there was a breakdown in communication. Classic case of what do you call theory about cheese, theory about the safety and how safety breakdown in certain information throughout the incident, and they all lined up for a major disaster. Hopefully, something's going to come out, and obviously, we will be more mindful of, especially with the communication while on active runways and active taxiways on the airfield. Thank you, and you guys have a great day. And obviously, we all know that majority of accidents are due to pilot error, especially when with regards to being close to the airfield, at the airport, on the taxiways and runways, and especially when coming into approaching into land. Those are critical portions of any flight. Communication is of the essence. Cockpit resource management as well as sterile cockpit environment is necessary when taxiing, especially on busy airports like this one. And for students, it's important to understand, especially in initial flying, it's very important for them to understand the essence of communication, maintaining sterile cockpit environment, and paying attention to all the communication, knowing exactly where other aircrafts are, not just your plane, other aircrafts also, which might affect your flight departing or landing. This is it for this session. Thank you. Have a great day.